Hello and welcome to the show. Now, the Infiniti IPL G Coupe is a car that I've never really thought about much when it comes to Forza. I certainly hadn't driven the car until very recently. I happened to drive the car standard and it actually really impressed me. It was a really quite good, fun vehicle to go racing with, and that got me thinking, would it make for a good autocross car? Because, yeah, it was a lovely car to drive. It is perhaps on the little bit bigger and heavier side than some of the traditionally, well, very fastest autocross cars, but you never know. Also got plenty of PI to play with. It's a mid-C class car, so I'm hoping that, this might not actually turn out to be too bad. The first order of business, some lovely race tyres, and we go for the maximum tyre width, 245 on the front, about what you would be expecting with a car like this, and 275 on the rear. Not the largest, but it should be okay for deploying the power. My real concern, as you can see from here, the weight is a lot in this car. 3,700 pounds is a lot to be starting with. The power's okay, 348 from standard, but yeah, it's getting that weight down. It's whether we're going to have the real agility when it comes to the very narrow sections of the track. That is what might be this car's undoing, and having simply the acceleration to go. It's down to 3,000 pounds. We're probably not going to get it much lighter than that. While things like exhausts will inevitably, and things like, these brakes, maybe the suspension will save a little bit of weight. We are going to be having a roll cage in the car. That's going to jump it back up again. It's going to be sitting around that £3,000 mark. As we put in the roll cages, it's about to creep its way up into A class. I mean, the power to weight ratio, I don't think it's the worst quite that we've seen, but actually the roll cage is not as heavy as I was expecting it to be. We might be able to get it back under the £3,000 mark with this exhaust. Got to save some weight. Not quite as much weight saved with that as I was expecting. We've been seeing cars 400-ish horsepower that have been weighing about 2,000 pounds. So, yeah, this isn't quite going to have the most ballistic power to weight ratio, but it's not going to be too shabby. I will have a look in here as we go for a diff. See if any of the gearboxes lower the PI. Sometimes, no, we come with sometimes the street gearbox can lower the PI, keep the PI the same. These, they do have a little bit of weight. It's not worth it for the PI gain that goes on with them. So we will go back to the engine and get every weight-saving engine upgrade that we can on the car. This vehicle, there are a couple of engines swaps available, 2.6 litre twin turbo and the V8, 5.7 V8 I think is the one. This car, as I do with these build series, if I can keep the standard engine, the engine can get up into A class, I'm going to keep it, and this engine is more than capable of doing it, so we are using the Infiniti standard engine. In fact, it's actually going to get a pretty sizable amount of power going on in here. Okay, that's a little bit more than I was thinking that we were going to end up with in this car. Past 500 horsepower. Okay, power to weight ratio looking a little bit more positive. I have avoided typical. We're going to have that as the really awkward. I have been avoiding going for the camshafts because I knew it was going to jump the PI up massively. What I might do is, if we go for one stage or less, let's say on this, and then we will go for one stage of camshafts. That gives us 3 PI to play around with, which should be enough for a flywheel and a driveline. What is the better order of doing it? Do we? Yeah, okay, we'll go for that. So we can get it under. We'll get it under the £3,000 mark. We will have the driveline, and then I'm hoping the first stage of flywheel. Yes, indeed, we can. £2,995, 523 horsepower. Not bad. Power to weight ratio is better than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be about sort of 450-ish, but we've got past the 500 horsepower mark, 400 torque as well. Hopefully it'll be as nice and balanced as it was to begin with, and this might not be too bad a car. Of course, to test out the Infiniti, we have come to the Hockenheim circuit, where it will get 3 runs through the Autocross course. Now, I am not quite expecting this car to be able to challenge the leaders, the Lamborghini Miura, Porsche 914 and the 203s. They are stupendously quick times, and I don't think this car will have the handling quite to go with them. They've got crazy power to weight ratios, can carry a lot of quarter speed, and I'm not sure this quite will be able to do that. Maybe top 20 might be doable, the low 206s, if things go well for this car. It's not just the weight, it's that the physical size of the car as well that we have got to perhaps worry about a little bit. It's certainly not the biggest car that I've taken around this course, but it isn't dainty either. So yeah, if we have enough grip in this to carry the corner speed, I think this could actually be a pretty solid car. There's always concerns about having an oversteering vehicle, or perhaps the brakes not being amazing. Again, it is that little bit heavier. It's not likely to have the greatest brakes of all time. Acceleration does seem pretty good. A little bit of understeer through there, but still carry a lot of speed for an opening run through there. It's about 106, 107 miles an hour is good going for, well, anything really. The Miura was up to 110. We've seen a couple of cars as well, the Beetle and so on, doing at 110 miles an hour. Not much faster than that. So yeah, the Infiniti not far off. In fact, it's very nicely composed on its way through the next section. Flat out down here, absolutely no problem. 124 miles an hour. Lots of speed. Got to get it back under control again. It is one of the fastest cars we have seen in terms of straight lines, but I think something else might have touched 124. If it isn't the fastest, it is right up there with them. It's quicker than the likes of the 911 and so on, which is very good going from this car. Oh, this is where the sort of corner that I was thinking it was going to struggle with. I did slightly brake too late, ran wide on the way in, didn't help me with the mid-corner speed. It's the really tight sections. The places where the Metro was so very fast are the kind of places where the Infiniti is likely to struggle, but it's got a lot more composure than the Metro ever did. I mean, 112 miles an hour again down in towards this hairpin is very quick. This car on the acceleration front, despite being that little bit heavier, it's got enough power and enough torque to more than make up for it as we round these final couple of corners. We've just got this wiggle now towards the finish line. Will the Infiniti be able to carry good speed through here? It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not quite Renault 5 levels of speed, but it's certainly not sluggish. Up towards the line for an opening run. 207.8 from the car. Pretty solid first run, actually. Finding more time might be a tad difficult, but we will see what we can do. So it is on to the second run for the IPL, and we got some time to try and find. It's always difficult having done what was a pretty clean run. There was only sort of one fairly minor mistake, in all honesty, on that first run, and I've now got to go out and try and find, well, seconds of time, which is, yeah, not the easiest. As this car was stock, it is actually quite nice. It's still very nice to drive. In fact, quite nice. Doesn't really do it justice. It's a very nice car to drive. A little oversteery for my personal liking. If we could have had some sort of 305s on the rear, I think that would have been ideal. Oh, that was really close. I was struggling to get the car stopped. I'm thinking we are probably losing time in two places. The slower corners and under braking. The brakes are perhaps the biggest thing letting the car down. My driving letting the car down there. I was trying to be too cheeky and sort of cut the corner. 123 miles an hour again. Oh, but then we're really struggling to pull it up in time. Yeah, I turned in a fraction too soon, and that took out a couple of barrels. A little bit of a shame. We'll see though what we can do overall elsewhere. Yeah, the brakes, it is quite early on the brakes. I know it is going very quick into these corners compared to some other vehicles, but still it is quite early under braking. It's not the worst. It's not the worst that we've seen. That was much better through that slow section. We got a much neater line, but it is less than ideal. You see there, oh, we did actually just clip it. That was only going to be a few millimetres in that one. Yeah, we were quite early on the brakes and still struggled to get the car slowed enough to make the corner, and then we're going to get a kick of oversteer as well. If only we had that little bit more. Now I'm pushing the car that tad harder. We're getting more and more oversteer as I'm trying to get speed out of the vehicle. If only we had that slight bit more rear composure, that would be incredible. Unfortunately, we do not, as we're now going to round these final few gates. Can I get to full throttle out of here? Indeed I can. We're going to slither our way across the line. There was a fair bit of time penalties in that one, 15 seconds of time penalties in all of that. I think it was 15 seconds anyway. So I think there is, if we can get a nice clean run, I think there is some time to be found. How much is yet to be seen. So it is on to the final run for the IPL. It feels like a pretty quick car to drive. I'm hoping this doesn't turn into one of those vehicles that feels faster than it actually is. I've had a couple of them around this course, and I'm hoping that this won't be one of them. There is certainly plenty of acceleration. However, we're once again, the problem we've been finding with a few vehicles, struggling to carry quarter speed. And the likes of the Lamborghini Miura, the really fastest cars, have had the crazy acceleration, but have had more than enough grip to manage through the corners. Whereas this, or grip and braking as well, whereas this has got the crazy acceleration, but perhaps not quite the same composure of the likes of the Miura or the same braking. That much is for sure. We did get about 108, 109 miles an hour through that opening high-speed gate. It's right on the limit between second and third gear through that corner. I had to have a little lift as we were understeering a tad wide. However, we are very neat and tidy coming into this next section. Not quite the 124 miles an hour, but very neat through the next corners, which is what we want after all. Autocross, all about these gates. No good being a mighty fast car in a straight line if you can't take any corner speed. This is where we struggle. We do have the power to get going again once we've got out of the slow corners, but just that change of direction is not as nice in this car as you would perhaps ideally like. At least we aren't struggling with massive twitchiness through these higher speed turns. That is always a big plus point as we get under brakes once more for the hairpin. Let the car drift a little bit wide, but not too wide. The back end was very much wanting to get away from me this time out, but it has all been kept under control. That was close. That was very close to the barrel there with the front splitter. Now this last little jink towards the finish line. Get the car through there. It's certainly not as dainty as we've had it from a few of the smaller cars. It's a low 107, 212. We are liking the low 107s at the moment in terms of lap time. I felt like that was going a bit quicker, I'll be honest. It's not the worst case of a car feeling faster than it actually is, but yeah, it felt a bit quicker around there. A good car, certainly. I do actually now quite like this vehicle. I think it makes for a pretty good A-class in terms of balancing speed and handling, because there is a lot of straight line speed, a hell of a lot of straight line speed in this car. To be going as fast as it is down the, well, kind of straights that we have around here, considering the weight of the car in comparison to the sort of vehicles that it's competing against, is, it's very good. It's up there with the very fastest, if it isn't the fastest car that has gone around here. It is let down by the brakes mostly. You just can't get, you've got to be so early on the brakes, it just doesn't get slowed down well enough, and all the time that you've made up with that crazy acceleration is then lost. Back end is a little wiggly as well. It doesn't help with confidence, and you can't put that power down out of the corner as well as quite a lot of the fast cars. The Focus RS, the 911 GT3, the Miura, and all of them lot were straight down on the power out of the slow gates, and they would go. Whereas likes of this car, not quite. Out of the Focus is four-wheel drive and so on, but yeah, this can't quite manage that. Even some of the bigger muscle cars as well have been pretty good for putting their power down and going whereas this can't quite, and it isn't quite as agile at the very, very tight sections on the course. Still, though, pretty good time. Pretty good time in the 207s. As I said, we're getting quite ridiculous in these low 207s. The car will go into 29th place. Yes, it does. It beats the Nissan Skyline R32 by fractions. It's quicker than the MG Metro again. Fractions in it. The Plymouth Prowler, the Ford Falcon. It does lose out to the Camaro Z28, Ferrari 355, Fiat 124, Jeep Grand Wagoneer. It is horrendously close in this area of the table. The Infiniti is, I think, a very, very good car. One of my favourite cars, I think, in this series. In some respects, probably one of the biggest surprises, definitely, for me, in terms of, not really knowing much about the car. And it is quite an easy car to autocross with, considering its size and everything. I think it's, quite a good vehicle. Got to watch out a little bit for the oversteer, but on the whole, a pretty easy car to complete this course in. So, I was hoping for a little bit faster time, perhaps, from the car, but that's what you get with some of these builds. That is going to be it from me, though. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.